Organization for years and years have been working on trying to bring around transformation in a world which is changing at a pace which I don't need to invest time before this forum to discuss. And yet, a survey indicates that 82% of organizations surveyed amongst the 1,500 companies looked at were all working on some or the other kind of transformation. And all of us out here know that transformations are at 4 levels, but 81% of organizations were working on transformations. Unfortunately, from that 81% organization, 72% organizations actually failed in their transformation. And that is why the code seeks its relevance, because we have been continuing to do what we have learned to do in the past and therefore yet not learned the lesson that we need to be changing our strategy. Because unless and until you change the strategy, you continue to do what you have been doing, you continue to get what you are getting. And therefore the need for us to look at change. And why I'm saying that is because at some point of time, I come from a school of thought, and I believe in a Stoic philosophy, that happiness is the fulcrum of all transformations. The focus that I'm trying to do is that organizations need to go through a series of transformations, and happiness is that fulcrum around which the transformation succeeds. HAT, as I put it in my write-ups, which means happiness anchored transformations. That's the only formula for success. And I want to invest my time in trying to influence you to start believing on HAT, because upon that corollary lies the main theory that we want to bring about to you, and that is that unless and until successful transformations are anchored around the force of the change that we want to bring, is fulcrumed by the idea of happiness, that change will never succeed. It has to be anchored by the fulcrum of happiness. Let me share with you, because we have done this exercise for a couple of organizations outside. We have also done for one large Indian company. We are driving this agenda in Delhi. And how are we doing some of this? Whilst there is smattering of thoughts that we will leave behind, because it's a large exercise and a 10-minute session is hardly relevant and right for us to discuss that. But there is a certain theory that I should leave behind with you for thinking, and that is called the Factor-Actor Happiness Index. All right. So in the environment, there are sufficient number of factors which have high potential to deliver happiness to all the stakeholders. To the entire set of stakeholders that you're working with, there are happiness factors, high potential happiness factors in the environment which have the potential to bring in happiness to your stakeholders and the entire range of stakeholders. I don't need to tell you who are stakeholders, all of us know who are stakeholders. So that is the factor part of it. Then there is an actor part of it, is that all the cost of the programs, the investments, the inflow of energy, the competencies, the capabilities that the entire organization needs to have to be able to explore this potential elements in the environment, to be able to make their potential become a real monetizable value to the various people who are your stakeholders, because that's when they start deriving the real value of happiness. That is the equilibrium balance, because till the point that the cost of trying to convert these potential elements into meaningful value is lower than the benefit that people will get, that is the point at which your business will be willing to invest money in it. Now, most people have spoken about happiness, and I don't want to disturb their thoughts into it, or not want to also leave you with a state of confusion by giving you another thought on it. But several people in the business environment have constantly told me, whenever we have approached them with this happiness anchored transformation agenda, boss, I'm not running an ashram. People are coming here for work, and I'm running my business to generate value, profit, and stakeholder happiness. But it is very, very important that this agenda of happiness should get converted in trying to create value for the organization. Otherwise, creating happiness without creating value for the company does not fit into my business agenda, particularly if you're a small organization or a mid-sized organization where resources are already in a state of crunch. At that point of time, to say that I want to invest in programs on happiness and I'm not even sure whether these programs are going to convert itself into meaningful value, that's the challenge you will always have. I was talking to Jimmy, and Jimmy said that isn't it natural that it will happen? It is not natural that it happens like that. Long time ago, lots of people believed that highly engaged people really contributed to organizational successes, and therefore the performances of organizations were really linked to the level of engagement of people. And some of you even now believe in that. However, there is sufficient amount of research available today, and you could go to website of the Stanford School and see the surveys done, which indicates that there is no direct linkage between employee engagement and the productivity and performance of an organization. Therefore, the hypothesis to believe that highly engaged people contribute to organizations' profitability and productivity is not necessarily a proven hypothesis. And therefore, whenever you approach with this idea that you should invest in happiness, yes, I love the idea, which is why people like Seligman have actually gone around and found a difference between bliss, happiness, and flourish. Bliss is a state of immediate happiness as you've experienced certain physical, sensual pleasures. I love to get a car, I got a car, I'm very happy, I'm blissful about it. Happiness. Who wouldn't want happiness if my boss does not supervise me, if I'm not going, if I can work from wherever I want, I can work from home, yes, it's all very good. I'm very happy with that organization. But flourish is the concept that you got to work as a matrix in your organization, because that's when the happiness that you are exploring from these high potential elements in the environment start contributing to business performance. So somewhere down the line, it is very critical that we link these elements of happiness which have got high potential, for which you are investing in programs to explore and explode that potential and convert into value, actually does get converted into the value for the organization. Because why else should an entrepreneur be investing money in happiness programs if it does not directly link back to the organization's profitability, and particularly if you're a small organization? So there is this equilibrium that goes on, and this equilibrium is dynamic, and I don't need to be really selling this idea to you, because elements in the environment dynamically shift based on changes that are happening outside. Compensation given in one organization will start disturbing the happiness of the people in your organization, which until the day before were very happy with your compensation programs. If someone got promoted in your organization, rightly or wrongly, and you supposedly anchored yourself with the batch that you and he passed and studied from, will suddenly make you unhappy if you have not been promoted. All of us know all of that. So happiness has several elements from the outside and from the inside, which are going to constantly change. The question is, as we are mindful, in fact, when I saw this entire Godrej analysis, and I remember that I was talking to one person a long time ago who was selling this software that we track all of this, and an employee stood up to tell, why the hell are you measuring it at all? Every day in the morning I'm on that chart saying I'm unhappy. And no one has ever come back and even decided to speak to me that why are you unhappy? So what are you really doing with me? I'd rather you don't collect this information than collect this information and do nothing about it. So those are the very, very critical elements of happiness that you need to be worried about. This equilibrium keeps shifting when there are changes happening. Now, critical is you have to once again get that equilibrium in place. And that equilibrium gets in place only if you follow strong norms of transformation. If a person meets with a temporary accident and is unable to do things and his hand is in a plaster, He will take help, he will find ways to do things for a few days because it's a temporary situation and he will find a way to do it. But suppose in that unfortunate accident, he goes and has one of his arms amputated. It's a lifetime loss. Now he's got to do things differently. He has to organize his life differently. He has to ensure that, his toilets are made differently. He has to do so many things because now it's a permanent change that's happening. So that is the difference between change and transformation. Most people mistake change for transformation and create a blunder. Change is a short-time adjustment you do when certain critical elements of your business value creation or your value chain get impaired by a lot of elemental factors. But when these elemental factors actually destroy the balance and the equilibrium of your enterprise, that's when you require transformation. Whenever you do transformation, therefore, happiness is the critical factor, which is the one that will keep indicating to you the real North Star. All right? It's very, very funny that the kind of changes that are happening in the world, we need to bring in a concept called flexible transformation. Can you imagine? Flexible transformation. Transformation, permanent in nature, and yet flexible transformation. Flexible transformation comes from the fact that nothing is ever going to be in such a steady state that even after you achieve the new state of equilibrium, that is going to be steady there for a long time. The pace at which change is happening, the pace at which these transformations are happening, the pace at which happiness is destroying itself, you will have to get a model for flexible transformation in place so that it becomes impactful to the organization's value creation. And the second factor that is very important is that it is very contributory because happiness is critical to employees. It is a fact that an unhappy employee will not contribute, though we don't really have measurements to indicate that happy employees positively contribute. Unhappy employees necessarily don't contribute, but happy employees positively contribute. That establishment of parameters and hypothesis is not yet set. So it is with this kind of reality that we need to understand, and I certainly don't have time to tell you what we are doing with Jindals, which is a very large organization where we are trying to drive this transformational agenda, but that story for some other day we will tell you. In fact, it is very surprising that we start believing that this happiness transformation is something of a very new origin. It actually comes from the times and writings of Aristotle, and that will surprise you. Aristotle has written pieces and pieces about happiness and the role of happiness in transformation of society, and chunks of what most of this business management school literature that you will see are actually drawing from the Stoic philosophy which Aristotle and Zeno 4,000 years ago actually propounded. Happiness is of 4 levels. There are 4 levels of happiness. Latus, Felix, Betty to do, and sublime Betty to do. And I'll explain to you the nuances of each. Latus is happiness that comes from material objects, and that can come for individuals and for companies. I want the most fancy building in Gurgaon to come up as my office. I want all offices fully air conditioned and toilets with German and Japanese equipment inside. I want this in my organization. I want 25 outlets in one location, etc., like the companies could have. But those are the material happiness from objects coming, which is the latest level of happiness that you get. The second is the Felix level of happiness, which is about ego gratification. Not only fulfillment of your need, but in my comparison with the anchor I have in mind, I should go better. That's when the ego factor comes in. And when you fulfill that ego level, it gives you a certain element of satisfaction. That is the Felix level of ego satisfaction and happiness that comes out of it. The third is Betty to do, which means along with the happiness I do for myself, a certain element of happiness that I bring to the society I am living inside. And that is when you see companies genuinely doing corporate social responsibility. Companies like Tata, companies like Reliance now are extending their monies and resources to be doing positive things, not only for themselves, but for the general society in which they are living in. That's the stage at which is called the Betty to do stage of happiness. And the last is the sublime Betty to do, which means that we bring in the elements of spiritual happiness. Now, the most important thing is organizations are impacted by all four of them. Individuals working in organizations and the levels of happiness impacted by all four of them. And simultaneously, the artificial personality of the organization also has all of these four elements present. It is how you and your leadership team understands not only its people, but your enterprise-wise personality and how it reflects to all of these four to come to life. That is very, very important. So these are the four levels of happiness, but it is very important that there are three things you should be mindful for if you want to create happiness. When people are doing things, number one, there should be pleasure in what they are doing. Number two, it should be engaging. They should feel that there is engagement, that heart is inside what they are doing, and they are not being forced to do things which they are just not otherwise interested in doing. And the third is they see a large meaning. And unless and until they see the purpose of their work is to build the church and not just lay bricks, that is very important. If they believe their job is only bricklaying, they will not do it with their heart. But if they are made to see that the bricklaying is leading to the building of a church, that's the meaning that will create value for them. And it's only when at these three levels you are able to get the guy to perform, that's the level of happiness you'll be able to get from the individual to create value in your enterprise. But we love to fake. As human beings love to fake. We fake happiness as well. We love to impersonate things which are not real. When we are not a great place to work, we still pay money and get a registration or get a license which says we are a great place to work. We get rewards which say that we are also a great place to work. We know that we are not equal opportunity employers, heart of hearts, but every literature and every pitch we give in the campuses says that we are an equal opportunity employer. How can we be an equal opportunity employer when 171 of the top 500 national companies do not even have the lady independent director on the board of the nationalized public companies? We love to fake, and that is where we fake happiness. Our vision statements make pronouncements that we are a great environment protecting company, but our carbon footprints are actually lamentable. That's the reality of the situation. We heard someone saying, we should make the board do happiness. Where is the question of happiness? The boards in India today first need to be taught governance. Because when they say that they are great governance companies, you do really know Chanda Kochar coming up, right? Right in front of our eyes. So where is the question of this? So these are large agendas that the companies need to work. Please do not believe that happiness is a small agenda which is some 6-month-long program that you will initiate in your organization and be able to drive it. You will not. There are serious, in-depth analysis that need to get done. There has to be sincere sponsorship from the top management. It is only then that you will be able to do these changes. And unless and until there is commitment to see the end of it and not see it just as a program initiated with song and noise, you will not be able to see the real purpose for which this is done. I would like to close with a nice query. Lots of time people keep asking, what happiness? We don't even know what is happiness to us. How can we create? हमको खुद को ही पता नहीं है happiness क्या है. So to that, it reminds me of again a very beautiful quote I had heard. It says, अगर जानना हो आपकी खुशी क्या है, तो ना पूछो पीर को, ना पूछो फकीर को, आंखें बंद कर लो और पूछ लो अपने ज़मीर को. Thank you very much.